Hello to all my handsome and beautiful gals and lads out there. My name is Megan Given. Last week I was thinking about doing a video over some hauntings or horror stories or murders that might have happened in the area in Texas that I was from. So I asked my mom if there were any horror stories or murder stories, anything weird, any hauntings that she knows around this area that we've lived in, which is the Cedar Creek Lake area in Texas. And immediately she was like, you need to look up the Betty Beets story. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to look into this because it happened literally in the small town that I'm from. It's the Cedar Creek Lake area, and even more a shirt, it says Cedar Creek Lake Vibes. This story is basically in that area, and it's in Gun Barrel City. Gun Barrel City is such a fitting name for this story. Gun Barrel City. That's a pretty cool name for a Texas city, if you ever think about it. But yeah, it's a very, very small town. Today, we're gonna talk about a woman named Betty Lou Beets. I'm gonna be doing my makeup and telling you about this murder that had happened in my hometown. So it really, I gravitated toward it. As soon as my mom told me about the story, I was like, I have to do a video over it because it's crazy, y'all. It's wild. So Betty, she was born in Roxborough, North Carolina, to alcoholic parents. Parents were tobacco farmers, and they were struggling to make ends meet. At 3 years old, Betty had gotten the measles, which caused her to become hearing impaired. At 5 years old, she had allegedly claimed that her dad had raped her and abused her. And sadly, at the age of 12, her mother was institutionalized. So Betty had a hard upbringing, which, if you ever watch murder stories or serial killers, they always tend to have a bad upbringing, which I'm not saying that if you had a bad upbringing or abusive parents or alcoholic parents, you're gonna grow up to be this way, but it's a pattern that, it seems to follow into. So at the age of 15, Betty marries this man. His name is Robert Branson, and he works at a zipper factory. And she just wanted to get out. She needed a way to get out, and this marriage was her ticket out. And she wanted safety and freedom from, her past. So at 15, she's already married to this Robert guy, and she claimed that this was an abusive relationship. It was unhealthy. He would beat her. So after 1 year of being married to Robert, they decided to split. And then Betty decides that she's going to commit suicide. Well, thankfully, this didn't happen. After this fiasco, they decide to rekindle their marriage, and they ended up being married for 17 years, which is a long time. They ended up having 6 children by the names of Connie, Shirley, Phyllis, Robbie Jr., and Bobby. However, in 1969, Robert claims that Betty was getting too wild for him, getting too crazy, and so he decides to leave, but after battling in court, it ended up Betty got custody of the children. So not even a year later, Betty doesn't want to be single. She's been single, but she's tired of it, so she finds another man, and this man is by the name of Billy York Lane. And Billy York, he is a house painter. So not long later, after their marriage, Betty claims that this relationship became abusive, violent, and Betty had enough. And so she was like, I'm just gonna leave. It's time for me to go. I'm just gonna leave. And so she leaves Billy. But Billy is not having it. So Billy begins stalking Betty, and he becomes insanely jealous, saying that Betty was a beautiful, pretty blonde woman who had, a huge effect on men. She could get any man that she wanted. And so this drove Billy to become her stalker. So one night, Billy follows Betty home from a bar that she had been partying at. And so Betty comes home, Billy follows in right after her, and then he confronts Betty and begins beating the shit out of her. which ended up breaking her nose. And so in retaliation or in self-defense, Betty grabs a gun and points it at Billy. She ends up shooting him in the stomach with a .22 and ends up getting arrested for this and goes to jail. Later, Billy decides to drop all the charges because he claims that, he was attacking her, beating her, and she shot him in the stomach in self-defense, so he just wants to go ahead and drop all the charges. So Betty is, free and her charges are gone. They decide to rekindle their marriage again, but it only lasts for a month and then they decide to split up. So you can imagine how toxic Betty's relationships are going. Or marriages, not even relationships, these are marriages. So after Billy and Betty Lou, they end up divorcing. Not even a year later, she marries another man. This is her third husband now. She marries a man named Ronnie. Now Ronnie, he is an auto parts salesman, and they got married in 1978, but this didn't last very long either. And mind you, this is her third husband. Her third one. Not judging or anything, but you gotta realize the toxicity that is going on with her relationships. So this relationship, or this marriage, it only lasted a year before it ended in a huge eruption of violence and arguments. So Betty, she had found out that Ronnie had been flirting with her two daughters, that were, beautiful young women, and she was pissed. She was not having it. Now, I've heard two different stories that, Ronnie was coming on to them, or that the daughters were equally coming on to him as well. But at the same time, it's not looking good for Betty. I mean, I would be pissed too. So because of this, Betty decides to throw him out, toss his ass to the curb, okay? But not even shortly later, she decides to get in his car in a fit of rage and tries to run his ass over. But thankfully, she missed. It didn't happen. Nobody got hurt. Lucky Ronnie, but okay. So that happened. So now her and Ronnie are no longer together. They get a divorce. But Betty, she still wants to find love. She's still looking for someone, or someone to have a great marriage with her. She's still looking for someone out there. True love. Sounds romantic, even after, your third husband. Still looking for love, okay? So soon after she divorces from Ronnie, she meets this other man who's tall, handsome. He works as a roofer. He works on roofs. Anyways, doesn't matter. And so this guy's name is Doyle Wayne Barker. So now this marriage was said to have been not a happy one. It just wasn't great. Toxic. We're seeing a pattern here, Betty. Betty Lou. We're seeing a pattern here, okay? And it's not a good one. So after 7 weeks, just 7 weeks of being married, her and Doyle, they divorce. They call it off. They split up. But this one, however, is told to be an amicable one. So there were no scenes that were made, no calls to the police, no violence, no arguments. They just mutually split up and everything was okay. Okay, so now Doyle and Betty, they're split up. They're not together anymore. But she is still on the hunt to find her Prince Charming. She is trying to find someone who will treat her like the queen she is, okay? And not long after, while she was waitressing, she meets a retired fire chief from Dallas whose name is Jimmy Don Beets. So it's said that Betty meets him while waitressing on her job, and she lays it on thick to him. She's real bold about it, and he ends up just falling under her spell. He's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have this little blonde hottie to myself. Okay. So after 9 months of dating, Jimmy Dean breakfast bowls, no. So after 9 months of dating, Jimmy Don Beets, he marries now Betty Lou Beets in 1982. And they end up settling in a place called Gun Barrel City, Texas, in her trailer. So Jimmy is like, oh, okay, now I'm relaxed and retired. Now it's time to treat my wife to a life of luxury. We're just gonna hang out in this trailer, and live the life. Okay? So not long after they had gotten married, Betty was like, I want you to make a wishing well that symbolizes our marriage. So she asked Jimmy to make her a wishing well, saying that she wishes that this marriage will be different than all of the others. So it basically symbolizes their marriage, that this is the one that's going to last. It's going to be an amazing marriage, healthy, just living the rest of their lives together, right? And so Jimmy is more than happy to do this. He's like, oh yes, I'm going to build this for my beautiful wife. And so he just jumps on the job. Okay, so now it is the summer of 1983. So on the morning of August 6th, 1983, Betty calls police reporting that her husband, Jimmy Don Beets, is missing. What the hell? What happened to Jimmy? Okay. She calls police and tells them that he had went night fishing the night before, but he never came home. So later that evening, police go out and investigate, and they find Jimmy Don's boat in Cedar Creek Lake drifting near the Redwoods Beach Marina. Okay, Redwood Beach Marina. Okay, beach, Cedar Creek Lake is not a beach, I'll tell you that much. Is dark and nasty. Okay, so in Jimmy Don's boat, they find his boating license, some nitroglycerin tablets, which are for like heart medicine, like blood pressure medicine, heart medicine. And they also find a life jacket, but that was it. So police are believing that he had a heart attack on the boat, fell off of the boat, and then drowned in the lake. I mean, it seems to be the case here. So police officials and a search party were sent out to sweep and scour Cedar Creek Lake, which took them 3 weeks. They did 3 weeks of looking. They found nothing, and so it was called off. So no body was found in the lake, but they were saying that Jimmy it was a drowning. Like he had drowned, an accidental drowning, had a heart attack, fell off his boat, and he drowned. Now I'm not gonna lie, Cedar Creek Lake, it ain't the prettiest. And thinking about this, I wonder how many bodies are at the bottom of that lake. Like, what's down there? It's real murky. I don't even want to think about it. I don't know. So going back now to Betty, Betty is now single, and she's living at the trailer by herself alone, and she's trying to adjust to the new life of being single again. So for 2 years, Betty had been single and living in that trailer in Gun Barrel City. But 2 years later, police got a tip. They got a tip about Jimmy Don and where his body, or what had happened, might be. So Rick Rose, an investigator at the Henderson County Police Office or Sheriff's Office, he had received a tip from a news source. This tip had told Rick that there is more to the disappearance of Jimmy Don than they had ever imagined. And so they had told him to look at the wishing well, or under the wishing well, at Betty Lou's house. The same wishing well that Jimmy had made for Betty. So Rick gets a search warrant to search Betty Lou's house, and he knocks on the door, which surprises her because, it's been 2 years, and he comes over unannounced. She's like, what the hell is going on? And he tells her that he received a tip saying that Jimmy Don's body, I keep wanting to say Jimmy Dean, Jimmy Don's body is, is here. Like, there was a tip, we're gonna search the place. We got a search warrant. So immediately, Rick goes over to the wishing well that Jimmy had built for Betty to symbolize their new found love for each other, their new relationship together. Sure. So Rick begins digging around the wishing well and soon finds a body. Okay, Miss Betty. Betty's hiding some shit. She's hiding some shit. Rick finds a body under the wishing well, but he's not quite sure it's Jim. He has a huge suspicion that it's Jim, of course. But he goes around looking the property to find any more clues. Rick starts looking near this garden shed that had some loose cinder blocks around it. And so he starts digging up the cinder blocks and digs up underneath the garden shed. And bombshell here, there's another dead body underneath the garden shed. Okay, so Miss Betty Lou looks like she has been busy, huh? So they were basically out there to look for Jimmy to see if he was there, but they found 2 bodies on her property. On Betty Lou's property, 2 bodies. So they're thinking, one of them has to be Jimmy. I mean, that's why they're there. But like, who the hell is this other person that's underneath this garden shed? So they send the bodies out for an autopsy. So the 2 bodies were sent to the Dallas County Forensic Science Laboratory for post-mortem autopsy. In the meantime, Betty was arrested and was put under interrogation for questioning. I mean, good. She's very suspicious, like, come on. So while they're waiting on the autopsy results, they interrogate Betty to get something out of her, because they really think that Jimmy is this, one of the bodies that's in under the wishing well, but this other one they have no idea. So they're searching for answers. Okay. So they're looking in Betty's background, and that they see that she has a charge for aggravated assault, which was from the husband that she had shot in self-defense. But they still see that there's a charge there. And Betty tries to tell them that it was all in self-defense. And she tries to explain to police that she's innocent here. Like, that aggravated assault charge was in self-defense from her second husband in the past, who was beating on her, broke her nose, and so she shot him in the stomach in self-defense. So, I mean, Betty was, basically covering her ass, trying to prove that she is innocent in all this. And this was just, a step in the way, showing, that she had aggravated assault. So soon, Betty starts getting a little curious, and she asked police officers what dirt they had on her. Like, what did they know that she doesn't know? And so they told her that they had a tip come in. Yes, a tip. From someone that she doesn't even remember. So apparently one night, Betty had gotten drunk, and one of the lovers that she was with, or just someone, I guess a one-night stand maybe, she tells him while she was drunk that she had killed her husband in premeditated murder, killed her husband, and then buried him under the wishing well that he had built for her. Not only did this guy come forward, but 3 of Betty Lou's children came forward as well. So this was a huge bombshell for Betty. She was like, 3 of my kids came forward. Shit. So enter now Robbie, Phyllis, and Shirley, all of Betty Lou's children. They came forward to police and are now police informants and want to testify against their own mother in court, because they say that Betty Lou planned on killing Jimmy, her husband. So I'm sure police are like, hell yeah, we got some, her kids are testifying against her. Like, come on now. So Betty is now arrested and put in jail. And during this, autopsy results finally came back for the 2 bodies that were found on her property. The body that was found under the wishing well was indeed Jimmy Don Beets, her 5th husband. So the autopsy revealed that Jimmy had been shot 2 times. One was in his torso, and then the other one was in his skull. So for the second body that was found under the garden shed in her property, this was Betty's 4th husband, Doyle Wayne Barker. And this was the marriage that was supposedly ended on good terms with Betty. Like, no scenes happened, no calls to the police. This was that marriage. I wonder why there was no, violence or anything, any drama related. Because she got rid of him. Okay. So the autopsy also revealed that on Doyle Barker, he had 3 gunshot wounds to the head. For Betty Lou, what was the motive? Like, what caused her to kill two of her husbands? I mean, she had a string of abuse in her life. So was it because she was fighting back? Was it because she wanted to get rid of them somehow? Or was it because she was greedy? Did she want money? So police discover weeks after Jimmy's disappearance, Betty went to a chaplain for the city of Dallas Fire Department. She wanted to see if she was eligible for any pensions or insurance claims for her husband. So Miss Betty over here realizes that she's eligible for $1,200 a month for pension benefits on top of a further lump settlement. She also learns that her husband also has a life insurance policy that would owe her $110,000. However, because Jimmy Don's body was never found, this would have a 7-year waiting period before any of her payments would be given out. So Betty Lou also admitted to forging Jimmy Don Beets' signature on a bill of sale for the boat that Jimmy had owned. And this was the boat that he allegedly went missing the night before she called the sheriff's department. And she ended up selling that boat for $3,250. That's a win if you ask me, okay? Just kidding. This is not a good story. So this isn't all that Betty tried to do to get money basically out of Jimmy, her husband, her fifth husband. My God, fifth husband. Still not judging. You know, it takes a while to find the love of your life, I guess. You can't judge. Anyways, so a niece of Jimmy's and an employee of J.C. and Penney Life Insurance Company had testified that on May 19th, 1983, Jimmy had canceled the life insurance policy for $10,000. But this had been taken out without Jimmy's knowledge. Like, he had no idea. But guess who did it? Guess who did it? Oh, Betty Lou. Oh, good old Betty Lou. Betty admitted to forging her signature in order to make her the sole beneficiary of the life insurance. So when Jimmy found out, he was not happy. And this was, back when he was alive, but he was not happy. But Betty had begged for forgiveness and kept saying she was sorry and apologized and said, "I will never do anything like this again, I promise." And so he took her word for it. So eventually, Betty finally confesses to something. And she confesses that it wasn't her that did the killings. Oh no. It was her son, Robbie Jr., that killed Jimmy Don Beets. Oh, yes. Yes. So Betty claimed that Robbie and Jimmy didn't see eye to eye on things. They were constantly arguing. They fought a lot. And it was said that Robbie had actually hot-wired Jimmy's boat. And he also wrecked one of Jimmy's motorcycles in the past. So the relationship was very toxic. Those two men shouldn't have been around each other. Robbie was living at the time with his mother in that trailer, with his mother Betty and with Jimmy Don as well. And one day Robbie comes home and he tells them that he had quit his job just out of the blue and was like, "I quit my job," and this pisses off Jimmy Don. So they start arguing, and then Betty is trying to get in the middle of them, but they're two big men, and Betty is just this tiny, frail, middle-aged woman who really can't do anything. And so she tries, but it escalates. And apparently, Robbie and Jimmy go into another room where they start fighting some more, and then Robbie pulls out a gun and then shoots Jimmy Don and kills him. And this is what Betty Lou is saying about her own son. She says that whenever she saw Jimmy lying on the floor dead, she goes down there and holds his body, and she's just crying and just begging for forgiveness for her son and her, because she knows deep down that she cannot turn her son into authorities for killing her husband. Her husband's dead, but she's not going to turn in her son. She then tells her son, you need to go dig a grave underneath the wishing well for Jimmy. And while you're doing that, I'm going to zip him up in a sleeping bag to hide his body. And so they do just that. So whenever they're both done, they grab Jimmy and hoist him up and carry him all the way outside and then bury him underneath the wishing well. She also told her son, if this ever got out, then we deny everything. And if it comes out, then I will take all of the blame. Sure, Betty Lou, sure. You're the one throwing him under the bus right now, but okay. So then that night they decide to take Jimmy's boat, and they take the boat, they put his pills in there for his heart medication to throw them off, and they, release it into the lake to make it look like he had had a heart attack and then drowned in the lake to throw the police off of their trail. The next morning, that's whenever Betty Lou decides to call the police and say that her husband has been missing, and then, that's what happened. Okay, so now it's time for the trial of Betty Lou. And so her children are there and they're ready to testify against their mom. So basically it's the children versus their mom. Who is the jury going to believe? So Robbie is the first to take the stand and testify. I have such small lips, so trying to line my lips is a nightmare. So Robbie basically tells the jury that yes, him and Jimmy did fight quite a bit and they didn't see eye to eye, but that day that they didn't argue, the day that he went missing or the day before, they didn't argue, and he didn't even see him that day. But what he did see, so he had came home and he saw his mother, and his mother had immediately told him, like, you have to go, like, I'm taking care of it today, I'm going to kill Jimmy, but I don't want you to be here. So Robert leaves. I don't know why he didn't try to stop her, but he didn't, but okay. So he leaves and then comes back hours later, and then he sees Jimmy on the floor dead, and he sees his mom trying to zip him up in a sleeping bag. So that's when Betty goes to tell him, like, go dig a grave under the wishing well while I wrap him up and we'll put him underneath there, and that's where we'll bury him. And of course, because it's his mom, I mean, we weren't there, but he listens to her, and so he goes and does what he's told by his mother. So at this point, it's the mother's word against the son's. So Betty Lou is saying that Robbie killed Jimmy, and now Robbie is saying that his mother killed Jimmy. So it's a hot mess. And so now Shirley, that's Betty Lou's daughter, so she takes a stand, and she has always been Betty Lou's confidant. Like, they've been very close together. So Shirley comes up and explains the death of Doyle, her fourth husband. Betty had told Shirley that she was in an abusive relationship and that she wanted to divorce Doyle, but she couldn't because the trailer was in his name, and if they were to divorce, then she wouldn't have anything. So, of course, Betty's plan, good old Betty, her plan was to kill her husband so she could take the trailer for herself. Okay? Betty told Shirley all this, and Shirley tried to talk her mom out of it. She really did. She tried to talk her mom out of it, but when Betty had something, like, was dead set on something, there's no turning back. Like, she was gonna do it. So one night, while Doyle is asleep, Betty takes a gun, and she goes into the room, she sneaks in there, and then she lifts up a pillow and puts a gun next to it to kind of, I guess, disassociate herself or try to keep the spatter from going on her. I'm not quite sure what the pillow was about, but she puts a pillow up and then she shoots Doyle, and it shoots him in the head. But to make sure that Doyle had died, she takes the pillow away, she proceeds to shoot him 2 more times in the head. That's when Betty called Shirley to come over and to help her get rid of the body, like to bury the body. And so this is where the garden shed comes in. So they go out in the backyard of Betty Lou's property, they dig up a grave for Doyle, and then they put these cinder blocks over it. But to cover it up even more, they build a garden shed over it to kind of cover up the crime, or the burial site where they had buried Doyle. So at this point, Shirley is, I'm sure, traumatized at this. Like, she's probably torn, like, what do I do? Do I tell police, or do I help cover up for my mom? Like, if I were in that situation, I'm not sure what I would do. So she keeps quiet about it. And then when this situation with Jimmy is brought up, Betty tells Shirley that she's planning on killing Jimmy. And again, Shirley tries to talk her out of it. Like, please, Mom, don't do this. Like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go to jail, blah, blah, blah. So again, Shirley tried to tell her mom, please don't do it. But of course, when Betty Lou sets her mind on something, she's gonna freaking do it, okay? So a week later, after she had killed Jimmy Dawn, she tells her daughter Shirley, and so does Robbie, her brother. They both talk to her about it and tell her what had happened. And Shirley is just, I'm sure she's just going through it. Like, what the hell is going on? Why am I in this family? Like, that's what I would think. Like, what the fuck? So at this point, Shirley is over it, and so are the other kids. They're just over it. And so they decide they're testifying against their mother in court. They're tired of it. They don't want to go to jail. They're sick of all this. So they basically just spill all the tea about their mother's murder spree. Murder spree is 2 people, but still, I guess it's a spree. I mean, whatever. On October 11th, 1985, Betty Lou Beets is sentenced to the Mountain View Female Offenders Unit. She is also sentenced to death by lethal injection. She, of course, tries to appeal her conviction and asks the judge to view her as a battered woman who has been through constant abuse in her life. But the courts decided they had all the information they needed. They didn't want to hear anymore. They've seen enough. They have all the evidence they needed, and what is done is done. So on February 24th, 2000, Betty Lou is executed by lethal injection. She is the 4th woman executed in the U.S. after the reintroduction of the death penalty in 1976. So that is the story of Betty Lou Beets and how she murdered 2 of the 5 husbands that she had. Now, I've heard other stories, but this is the story that I have researched and looked up. But she did some awful shit, like. So that is the crazy story of Betty Lou Beets. And I found this story, of course, interesting because it is in my hometown of Gun Barrel City or Cedar Creek Lake area. And I was like, I have to tell you this story. Like, it's just wild. But anyways, I hope you have a great day and subscribe. Comment what you want me to talk about next time. I'm not quite sure what I want to talk about. So if there's anything, I'm really interested in like areas in Texas as of right now, but it could be like throughout the entire world. If there's like a haunting or any wild story, I would love to cover it. I think it's really fun to like dive into this. Like I went down a rabbit hole for this one. So subscribe, comment, like, dislike if you want to. Hell, it's a free country. Do whatever you want. But yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. And, that's it. Bye, beach.